Okay. What's going on?
You're ready to go.
Thank you, Christina. Welcome, everybody, to the City Council meeting of October the 13th, 2020. Madam Clerk.
Prior to roll call, the city attorney would like to make an announcement regarding the teleconferencing procedures of the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The procedures adopted for this meeting meet or exceed the standards set forth in Governor Gavin Newsom's order N-25-20, which allows public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Madam Clerk, please conduct roll call, and then I will ask the mayor to recognize me afterward to confirm certain matters to the record.
Councilmember Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember Alone.
Here.
Councilmember Perkins.
Here.
Vice Mayor Zafar.
Here.
And Mayor Clarkson.
Here. Martin, you're back up.
Thank you. I would now like to verify that all members of the council can hear me well, that all members of the council have been able to hear all previous speakers, including the roll call, and that each council member believes, based on facial or voice recognition or otherwise, that all persons representing themselves to be council members are in fact council members. I see 5 thumbs, and I will now turn it over to the mayor and with the reminder that all votes must be taken by roll call. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Item 2, Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm going to call upon Councilman Dave Hudson to lead us in the pledge.
Ooh, I like that flag. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item,
Thank you, Dave.
item
You guys
3.
waited. It made me think I left a line out or something.
Item 3, announcements. 3.1, changes and additions to the agenda. We have none. Item 3.2, if you would like to speak under public comment or any item on the agenda, please click the raise your hand button on your computer or *9 on your telephone. Item 3.3, boards, commissions, and committee meetings. A complete list of all upcoming meetings can be found on our website, and you can subscribe to those pages for automatic notification when an agenda is posted. Item 4, public comment.
Thank you, Christina. Public comment is a chance for an opportunity for the public to address this council and the city on any item that's not on the agenda. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Christina, do we have any written or anybody in the audience who is given a chance to raise their hand?
Just another reminder, if you would like to speak, please use the raise your hand button or *9 on your telephone at this time. I don't have any written comment for this item, just for future items on the agenda.
Okay.
And
Is anybody in the audience raising their hand for public comment?
no, it does not appear so.
We'll give them a second, just in case you're trying to figure that out. I don't want to rush it. No hands?
No hands.
Okay, then we'll close public comment. There is a opportunity at the end of the meeting to also address the council. Madam Clerk.
Item 5, consent calendar.
Items on the consent calendar are deemed routine in nature, but anybody, and are voted on all at one time usually, but anybody from the audience or from staff or a councilman can ask for an item to be pulled for discussion. And I see a hand up from Councilman Sabina.
So I wanted to poll 5.2 to get a little bit more detail on that one.
Is there a motion?
I can move.
Okay, why don't you move and exclude 5.2?
Exclude 5.2.
I'll second. I don't have the agenda right in front of me. What numbers are we talking about?
5.1 through 5.4.
Less 5.2.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Sabina and seconded by Dave to have 5.2 pulled and the rest to be approved. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Hudson.
Aye.
Councilmember Alone,
Aye.
Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Zafar,
Aye.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0. You do have a hand raised by a member of the public at this time.
For an item on the consent calendar?
I would assume so.
Martin, we've already voted on this. And there's an opportunity at the end of the meeting for public comment. And I don't want to take things out of order, but I'm looking to you for some direction, sir.
Well, if there is, if we don't know what the item is that they're interested in, it may very well be that it's 5.2. Let's find that out first. Otherwise, okay.
Martin, excellent point. Christina, could you invite them into and find out what they want to comment on?
Yes. So the public comment is from Luz Gomez.
Good evening, council members. This is Luz Gomez. I am a 40-year resident of San Ramon. And reviewing the agenda, I noticed that there's an incredible opportunity for San Ramon to kind of stand out regarding the purchase of police cars. I see that there's an item for about $170,000 to purchase 5 police cars. And I would really encourage the council to consider the purchase of an all-electric vehicle like the city of Fremont has been doing lately with great success. While the initial cost of an electric vehicle would be higher, over the 5-year life of a vehicle, they stand to save a lot of money for the city. So if possible, I would urge the council to pull this item from the agenda, even though you already voted. So I had my hand up a little earlier, hoping to comment on this before the vote. But if possible, and if there were to be agreement among you, to direct staff to at least consider the possibility of purchasing one all-electric vehicle and to speak with the city of Fremont about what they've done. Captain Washington was very helpful when I spoke with him yesterday about this, and they have had a great experience so far. So that is my comment, and I'm hoping that the city can stand out in our Tri-Valley by moving forward with something like this.
Thank you, Luz. Martin, this item has been voted on. If a council member wanted to have 5.4 as a consideration, not that necessarily I know somebody does, is that an opportunity or can we not do that?
The council may entertain a vote to redo the consent calendar, excluding both 5.2 and 5.4, or it can stay with its original vote.
And there need to be a motion and a second to proceed.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Hudson, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I think the point is well taken. I don't want to change my vote, but I would like to send it to policy if we could take a look at going after a grant and what it would take, research a car for an electric car. I mean, we're going to be buying these things. This isn't the only time we're going to be purchasing cars. I don't know if we could go after it with the Volkswagen settlement. The timing would certainly be, well, that money's going to run out. A couple of years ago, we had something like $140 million we were giving out in grants. I would prefer to proceed with what we've done today and go to policy and get another one, is what I'm essentially asking.
And Dave, just as clarification, when you said we passed out 140 million, you might want to identify who that we was.
At the time, I was the chair of the Bay Area Air Quality Management District when we were doing this.
Thank you.
The money is still there. There are grants given out all the time, and I would just as soon try and leverage some money and get another one, because we're going to be asking again for cars. They don't get newer, they get older.
Thank you, Dave.
I would agree with Dave, Bill. I think it's something worth exploring in the future. They're on a cycle now, and reality about cop cars is they get bashed up a lot. So putting a lot more money into them also makes it a lot riskier. So that's I don't know what the financial return on it is. but it's certainly worth exploring in the future, but not ready to change my mind at this point on this particular item.
Yeah, so this purchase has already been managed, if you will, through a Dodge dealer. The order is ready to be placed, and the replacement of police vehicles is done on a schedule that's based upon their past usage and which vehicles are ready to be replaced at a given time. So I think it's important for us for public safety and for the officers, knowing that they have reliable vehicles, that we proceed with the existing resolution. But I agree, we do need to look forward and see what is available that makes sense in electric police cars. We're also going to end up, and we're going to need to go with, electric public works vehicles and code enforcement staff. And as you know, the governor has signed a executive order that will, you won't be able to buy gas-powered vehicles in the not too distant future. So let's look at it and see what we can do going forward. I think that's an important step.
Great. Sabina.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to Councilmember Perkins' comment about that it will soon be mandatory to have electric cars. So I think as we start planning for this, it would be a good idea possibly to go into policy and see how we're going to be acquiring our new cars for any city-related business.
Just a point of clarification, if I can, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
In the future, the resolution calls for renewable energy. So there's also the possibility of the hydrogen. And since we have an expert on hydrogen cars that will be at the policy meeting, it won't just be electric. I would prefer, I mean, I've been talking about it forever, but it's renewable is the key. So we do have hydrogen refueling here, and that may be in the consideration. So we'll see where it goes.
This was agendized so we can discuss it. It sounds as if the direction of the council that we have this discussion take place at policy. And I think, Martin, with you're okay, we can go that direction with that direction. Okay, thank you, sir. So make sure we're crossing the T's and dotting the I's on that. All right. Madam Clerk, next item.
Item 6, special presentation 6.1, proclamation declaring October 2020 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, presented by Mayor Clarkson to Rewire Community. And this evening we have Yamini Dixit, who is the board president of Rewire Community, and Ria Pandi, who is the youth volunteer.
Great. And would they like to be come in and make a comment before?
Yes.
Great.
I actually don't see Ria on the list.
He wasn't attending it, and it disappeared.
Yamini's logging in right now.
Yes, I see her. She's not muted. Are you there? She dropped off.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Good, good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. As she said, my name is Yamini Dixit, and I am the co-founder of Rewire Community, which is a local nonprofit organization working in the gender justice space. I would really like to thank the City Council for this opportunity and for the Domestic Violence Awareness Month proclamation today, and for creating this space to hold a conversation on a topic that is very prevalent and relevant to our community. DV is a problem that only grows in silence. So by being here today, we are acknowledging the interpersonal violence and injustice that does exist and honoring the journeys of many women, men, and children. The current pandemic has actually only further aggravated the issue of DV. It's socially isolating the victims. It's forcing more to suffer in silence. There are DV reports in Contra Costa County that have reported that there has been a sharp increase in DV during shelter in place. An example being Richmond police reporting a 16% increase in DV incidents, while the Alameda County recorded about 12% increase. And actually all across the US, police agencies have reported almost a 10 to 30% increase in DV. And these incidents are only expected to continue rising as unemployment rates also soar. We understand that crisis situations have a very heavy impact on survivors of violence, especially those who are also members of marginalized communities like people of color, LGBTQ+ communities. So when the shelter in place started in March, our nonprofit Rewire community, we pivoted our efforts to focus towards creating support and set up a COVID-19 Survivor Relief Fund, which is an emergency fund providing assistance to DV and sexual assault survivors. Since March, we have raised over $30K to support 82 clients and their families, working with 11 domestic violence and sexual assault agencies across the Bay Area. In August, we also added survivor care kits to our work to provide temporary emergency assistance in the form of basic essentials such as soap, sanitary pads, reusable masks, food, etc. And in the last 3 months, we have sent out about 108 women and childcare kits to DV agencies and local police departments. I just want to close here today with saying we are so very grateful to the communities that have stepped up during these hard times to support and continue to respond with compassion, generosity, and inclusivity. And we extend the same thanks to all of you on the call today and the City Council. We really hope to keep this work going. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Christina, are you going to share the screen? Great. Thank you. This is an opportunity for the city to give a proclamation. Starts off, whereas 1 in every 3 women will experience domestic violence during her lifetime, and 1 in every 4 women will experience sexual assault in her lifetime, and 1 in 6 men have abused or unwarranted sexual experiences in their lifetime. And whereas approximately 15.5 million children are exposed to domestic violence every year. And whereas when a family member is abused, it can have long-term damaging effects upon the victim that also leave a mark on the family, friends, and the community at large. And whereas family is indispensable to a stable society, and there should be a place of support to install responsibility and values in the next generation. And whereas violence against women and children is a prevalent social ill due to the historical imbalance of power and gender and age. However, sexual and domestic violence are widespread and devastating society as a whole. And whereas the problems of sexual, and you're moving it around on me there, violence are not confined to any group or groups of people, but across all economic, race, gender, educational, religious, and societal barriers are sustained by social indifference. And whereas the crimes of domestic and sexual violence violate an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity due to this systematic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and or abuse, and whereas victims should find help to find the compassion, comfort, and healing they need, and abusers should be punished to the full extent of the law. And whereas victims of violence should have access to medical and legal services, counseling, emergency and transitional housing, and other supportive services so that they can safely escape the cycle of abuse. And whereas it is important to recognize the compassion and dedication of the individuals who provide services to victims of domestic and sexual violence and work to increase public understanding of this significant problem. And whereas local programs, state coalitions, national organizations, and other agencies nationwide are committed to increasing public awareness of domestic and sexual violence and its prevalence, and to eliminating it through prevention and education. And Next page. Whereas we dedicate ourselves to protecting vulnerable members of our community, and whereas San Ramon has a moral obligation to work to prevent domestic violence, address its brutal and destructive effects, and to make domestic violence a local priority. And whereas there are local programs and services available to victims of domestic violence and their children, such as Stand for Families Free of Violence, Discovery Counseling Center, and the Family Justice Center. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of San Ramon does hereby proclaim the month of October 2020 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and urge all citizens to actively support work towards the elimination of domestic violence. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank the City Council once again for this proclamation too. It's to honor every individual survivor, client, advocate, organization that is working at the grassroots to break these, what we call cycles of violence. So we really hope to continue building on this through our work, policy changes, and resources that the proclamation talks about, and create healthier and violence-free communities for all. So thank you so much.
And I really appreciate the work you're doing. This pandemic and the lockdown has brought about tremendous amounts of stress on individual families. It's one of the hidden costs of the lockdown, and the work you're doing and the education is really important. And it's also an opportunity that you've done, and I would like also to do through our police chief, because it's usually our police officers that are the ones that have to respond to these situations. They're the ones that have to experience and for themselves the trauma of watching dysfunctional families and violence and how children are suffering in those situations. And so Chief Stevens, this wants you to know how much we in the community appreciate the sacrifices you make as individual officers when you have to go to these calls and the heartbreaking experiences you see with, especially with children suffering. I think it's really important that that be acknowledged, and I want to thank you. I'm looking to other council members if they'd like also to say something.
Oh, did you ask or say that Renew Dave was trying to get in earlier? I'm sorry. No, okay, I got the wrong name.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, Dave, I'm sorry, Scott.
I just want to thank you for all the work you do, and I'm very grateful that you're here and that your programs can help so many people in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your support.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did want to say thank you. I don't know if you saw my raised hand.
Okay, well, you're a little late on it for me. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Just wanted to say thank you to Yamini. I know we've talked about this as well, and it continues to be an issue in our community. Absolutely. It does not see social economic conditions. It does not see race. It does not see men or women sometimes. And so I really appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing. And I know with Chief Stevens as well, I've brought this up and we've had conversations around this as well. And he understands, that how important it is for us to support victims of domestic violence. So thank you so much again for all your services, and, anything we can do to help, let us know as well.
Thank you, Sabina. Thank you for your continued support.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Item 7, deferred consent items. 7.1, resolution number 2020-096, authorizing the mayor to execute amendment number 11 to the memorandum of understanding between the city of San Ramon and Contra Costa County and the Contra Costa County Community College District for operation of the Doherty Station Library.
And Sabina, maybe you could outline what your question might be before Kathy gets a chance to respond to it. That'll be okay?
Yeah, thank you so much. So what I was reading into it, that we're only extending this till December, and they don't want to continue to partner with us and have their own library. So just wanted a kind of update on where we're going with this. Is there a room to negotiate, or is it something they've already decided?
Yes, yes, they've definitely already decided it. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Sorry, I jumped right in there.
That's okay.
They have already decided. The library is already well into construction. And so they did give us notice per the MOU of 6 months, letting us know that they would be exiting the agreement. We'll be coming back to the city council in November with our concepts for how that will affect our services. And you'll have a chance to weigh in on those. But they are opening their library to the public. So in actuality, we're going to increase hours of accessible library services significantly with the changeover. That's just going to look a little different.
Okay.
So Doherty Valley will have 2 libraries?
Correct. So we'll have our library that will operate, and we'll have the community college library, which again will look different, but it will be open a lot of hours out there. So people will have that ability to go to both.
And I want to thank Dave for encouraging them during those meetings to do a library. So
They,
and Kathy, your support too. Thank you.
that is the agreement that we had, that it would be open to the public. The
Yes.
big one might be, and I'm 99% sure of this, is will that library be open to the University of California system, which is what we were going for back in the 90s. But, you know, something to talk about.
Yeah. I remember that other library was certainly for the middle school across the street. It was a big attraction where the youth
Yes.
services were provided through that community center, and a lot of kids, including mine, would wait there at the library, do their homework. So, and then they would make their ramen in the community center for the college. So, because I think that was open to public as well. So
And now they get to a college level environment if they want to study there too.
Yeah.
Would you like to make a motion, Sabina, if you're satisfied?
yeah, I just wanted some clarification on that. So I move 5-2.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Hudson,
Aye.
Councilmember Alone,
Aye.
Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Zafar,
Aye.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Item 8, adoption of ordinances. We have none. Item 9, city council appointments. We also have none this evening. Item 10, approval of minutes. Before you are the minutes from the city council meeting on September 22nd for your approval or amendment.
Is there a motion?
I'll move the city council minutes of September 22, 2020.
I can second.
Moved by Perkins, seconded by Sabina. Any other discussion? Seeing none. Christina.
Councilmember Hudson,
Aye.
Councilmember Alone,
Aye.
Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Zafar,
Aye.
and Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes 5-0. Item 11, unfinished business. 11.1, continued public hearing and introduction of the ordinance to update the Crow Canyon specific plan. Staff report by Senior Planner Cindy Yee, I'm sorry.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much, Mayor and City Council members. I'm here this evening for our second public hearing on the Crow Canyon Specific Plan Amendment. With me this evening is Andrew Hill with Diet and Bhatia. He will be providing the presentation this evening. I will be sharing my screen so that you can see our presentation, and we will continue with our second public hearing and be available to answer any questions that you might have. Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen here.
Yes.
Great. And I know Andrew was just promoted. So Andrew, I'll go ahead and run the slideshow if you'd like to go ahead and take it away.
Okay, great. Good evening, council members. As Cindy said, my name is Andrew Hill. I'm with Diet and Bhatia. We're the planning and design firm that's assisting the city with the specific plan update. And tonight is the second of 3 required hearings for adoption of the update before the city council. If you could move to the next slide and the one after that too. Let's just move to the objectives, Cindy, please. Yeah, so the objectives for tonight's hearing are to introduce the ordinance to update the specific plan. This is the first of a 2-step Process to receive any additional comments on the public review draft of the plan, and to respond to questions from the council that were raised at the last hearing on September 22nd. Next slide, please. Just a quick bit of background. The Crow Canyon specific plan covers a 135 acre area in the northwestern part of the city. It was originally adopted in 2006 with the intention of providing a destination and a gathering for the community, offering a range of different housing opportunities, preserving viable businesses that wish to stay in the area, and promoting a pedestrian-friendly environment. Next slide, please. Since adoption of the plan back in 2006, those circumstances have changed substantially. As we all know, the rise of internet shopping is changing the way we use retail and reducing demand for physical store space across the country as well as in San Ramon. The loss of redevelopment agencies across the state have meant a loss of funding for redevelopment projects. The Faria Preserve subdivision has been approved, and the City Center Bishop Ranch project has opened in the heart of the city. And then additionally, since adoption, a number of projects in the Crow Canyon specific plan area had come forward that were really not in keeping with the scale and the character that was not in keeping with community expectations. And so in that context, in the fall of 2017, the City Council initiated an update to the Crow Canyon specific plan and provided direction for staff on the project. Then over the course of the past year and 2 years almost, and through 15 different public meetings, be they community workshops or hearings before the Planning Commission, we have worked to update the plan with community input, and ultimately that led to release of a draft plan in May of this year. Next slide, Cindy. So the plan that's before the council tonight really retains the broad objectives of the 2006 plan, but it's been updated to respond specifically to direction received from the council and the Planning Commission at the outset of the process. So specifically, the updated plan has a refined mix of housing and commercial uses to better reflect the projected demand for those uses in the future. It introduces objective development standards that clearly define the desired character of new development for the area. And it also introduces a series of improvements to emphasize and enhance bicycle and pedestrian connectivity, particularly in the village center portion of the plan area at that key intersection of Deerwood and San Ramon Valley Boulevard. Next slide, please. So recapping the public hearing process to date, an addendum for the Crow Canyon specific plan environmental impact report has been prepared in accordance with CEQA, and it would be adopted as part of the plan adoption. Since the release of the public review draft plan in May, the Planning Commission held 5 public hearings and unanimously recommended adoption of the plan. The Planning Commission, in the course of their review, did suggest and recommend some refinements to the plan, and those have been summarized in an errata sheet that's attached to the ordinance in tonight's staff report. I would note that the errata sheet refinements are generally clarifications and enhancements to the draft, and they don't affect the validity of the CEQA analysis. Next slide, please. And so on September 22nd, the City Council held its first public hearing on the draft Crow Canyon specific plan. Council supported changing the name of the plan to the San Ramon Village specific plan to better reflect and incorporate the history of the area in the as part of the genesis of the community. And in the discussion, Council also requested some more information on 2 particular topics. The first one relates to Senate Bill 330 and its implications for the plan. And the second topic was for staff to come back with an update on the regional housing needs assessment. Next slide, please. So SB 330 is known as the Housing Crisis Act, and it came into effect on January 1st of this year. The law puts in place new restrictions on the city's ability to regulate housing development projects. The intent of the law is to increase certainty in the housing development application process and thereby facilitate production of housing to address a statewide affordability crisis. This law has two key implications for the Crow Canyon specific plan update. The first of them relates to the preliminary application procedure that it introduces, and the other relates to the requirements in the case of general plan and zoning inconsistencies. Next slide. So let me talk first about this preliminary application process. SB 330 establishes a uniform pre-application process with a common 17-item checklist that's used throughout the state. Upon submittal of a pre-application and payment of the fee, an applicant can effectively freeze the development standards that are in place at that time while they assemble the rest of the documentation required for the application. And so this means that if a pre-application for a project in the Crow Canyon specific plan area is received and the fee is paid before the Crow Canyon specific plan update is adopted, then that project would be reviewed under the current standards, the ones in the 2006 plan as amended. The next slide. And so the second implication of SB 330 has to do with general plan and zoning inconsistencies. The statute recognizes that from time to time there may be inconsistencies between the zoning and the general plan. And in such cases, when a project is consistent with the general plan standards, but not with the zoning, then the project is deemed to be consistent with the general plan. And so next slide. So thinking this through in terms of the Crow Canyon specific plan, the general plan designates the vast majority of the Crow Canyon specific plan area as mixed use, which means that it allows for a mix of residential and non-residential uses with residential densities between 14 and 30 dwelling units per acre and FAR of up to 0.7. By contrast, the current adopted Crow Canyon specific plan, which functions as the zoning for the plan area, permits housing only in the village center mixed use district and also where the residential overlay applies. And so under SB 330, this means that any parcel with the general plan mixed use designation could be redeveloped with a mix of with housing in a mixed use format as long as it's consistent with the general plan standards. Next slide. Council also, with respect to SB 330, requested clarification around the meaning of the term concurrently in the no net loss provisions of the statute. And so language from the statute is up on the screen here, excerpted. The statute allows for the city to make changes in land use and zoning to a less intensive use if standards and policies applicable to other parcels can be made concurrently so as to ensure that there's no net loss in residential capacity. So the intent of the no net loss provision is to ensure that there's always sufficient capacity to meet a city's unmet RHNA at all times. But the intent is not to ensure that that the changes must be made at the exact same moment in time. Next slide, please. And so throughout this 3-year process since the council initiated an update to the plan, throughout this time frame, council has directed changes to ensure that the no net loss provisions have been made concurrently with planning decisions. And so in 2017, at the time the project was initiated, council directed the removal of the housing overlay. There was a general plan amendment approved in 2018 that created land use and housing opportunity site. There was a rezoning approved in 2019 that expanded the city center mixed use zoning designation and development standards. With expansion of the city center mixed use, the City Walk was approved in 2020, which allows the shift in residential capacity from the Crow Canyon specific plan area. But all times throughout this process, there was always sufficient capacity for the city to meet its RHNA, and therefore the no net loss provisions have always been met. Next slide, please. So the other topic that the City Council requested additional information on at the September 22nd meeting had to do with an update on the RHNA process. And so right now, the ABAG committees are currently developing a methodology for the upcoming, for the next housing cycle, which runs from 2023 to 2031. There are some provisional recommendations regarding San Ramon's allocation, and that is for 4,720 total units to the city for the upcoming cycle. That is just a provisional allocation. The actual allocation will be finalized at the end of 2021. The housing element itself the update needs to be complete by January of 2023, and staff envisions that the 634 units in the Crow Canyon specific plan area will be included on the site's inventory for the upcoming housing element. If needed, additional strategies will be explored in updating the housing element to make sure that the RHNA is satisfied. Until we have a final RHNA number, we don't precisely know the impact on the Crow Canyon specific plan, though. Next slide, please. And so the Crow Canyon specific plan must be adopted by ordinance in order for the standards to have regulatory authority. Once it is adopted, it will function as the zoning for the Crow Canyon specific plan area. And the zoning map will be updated to reflect the boundary change that includes an addition of some acreage in the southwestern portion of the area. And so tonight, staff is recommending the introduction of the ordinance and that it be read by title only. And then staff recommends that the council continue the public hearing until October 27th, and also that the council set October 27th as the date for the ordinance adoption. And then just quickly in terms of next steps, if the council takes on that recommendation, then there would be an additional hearing on the 27th, and it would be anticipated at that date that the ordinance and the EIR addendum would be adopted. So that's a quick presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if that would be helpful.
Any questions of Andrew from council? Should we, Dave, you're sort of the resident, do we open public comment or introduce the resolution then open public?
I had questions. Unfortunately, I couldn't get to the participant to do it. There's my hand. If you can, Andrew, would you go back to page 55? There are a lot of questions I'd like to ask, but page 55, which I don't have, let me get rid of participant. The draft recommendation that you, and I'm not sure if you said, are you saying that we have sufficient locations for even this 4,720 units with this specific plan?
No, no, the total citywide allocation is provisionally expected to be around 4,700 units.
Let me help you out, Andrew.
Sorry.
And I'm sure Debbie's there. Well, that's not where I'm going. The 4,720 is option 8A that's in front of us now, and Thursday night we'll be trying to change it. But what I want to make clear here is 4,720, if it goes, and that's the recommendation from methodology to the full board at ABAG, is just the initial number. Then we go through the round where there are these exceptions or exclusions or changes. In the last cycle, we had 950, I think, originally, which would be the equivalent of 4,720, and we ended up with 1,400. My point being is we have to be sure that we can make these housing numbers if what I think I heard you say on SB 330 is correct, because I thought you were going in a different direction. And what I'm hearing and I'm asking now is, we're okay to do this map and not do housing where the two people are asking for projects?
You're talking about concurrence now, the question of
The
concurrence?
whole question, because I'm the one that brought up SB 330. I still contend it may have come through in January 1st, and it may be a pilot project, but all of our programs that end up being halfway decent, commuter benefits, for example, get extended. But the problem is there was a back date on that. I understood that where you couldn't have made these changes. So
Yes.
trust me, I've had my share of trying to do something in Crow Canyon. I don't need to put the Dave Hudson stamp on, I'm sorry, we're calling it San Ramon now. In the village, if you want to do it, it's fine. But I don't want to start off with 2 lawsuits, which are the 2 letters that we received today. And what I think I heard you say is we're okay with SB 330.
Yes, I believe that is the city's position. I think maybe Martin might be the best person to answer that question most directly.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. I do think that the conflict that you're hearing about with the SB 330 transfer of density, it boils down to a difference in the interpretation of the word concurrent. I think the folks that are commenting on this are trying to hold the city to kind of an impossible standard, saying that the word concurrently means that we have to approve the makeup density, if you will, at the exact same time that we approve the reduction in density in the Crow Canyon specific plan. That would require 2 completely separate processes with 2 separate approvals to occur at the very same meeting. As the city clerk could testify, that would be essentially like trying to hit a bullet in midair with another bullet. It's dependent on factors that are far beyond the city's control. For example, if with City Walk, they're a privately owned development, privately owned developer. If we're trying to get concurrent approvals, then that would mean that we would have to hold up another private developer so that we could approve the density transfer all at once. And that just could not have been the intent of the legislation. So the best and only plausible way, in my opinion, to interpret the word concurrent is to require that the 2 processes have to run concurrently. And staff has pointed out that the issue of density transfer has been discussed with California HCD back in January, when both the CCSP and City Walk project were still in process. So that would mean that if the state believed that the density transfer or the way that the city was implementing the density transfer were improper, they could have directed staff at that time to remedy the situation when both projects were still under consideration. So, and they didn't. So at a minimum, the city has made a good faith effort to effect the density transfer concurrently as required by SB 330.
Thank you. Dave and then Phil, excuse me, Scott and then Phil. You're on mute, Scott.
Okay, I just wanted to understand that while we had this little update on the RHNA process, we fundamentally have, a 1.5, 2 years to implement whatever comes down the pike, and we don't know what that number is. We think it's about 4,700, but it could be higher, it could be lower, depending on what gets adopted, and then through the appeal process and all that. So while it's interesting to know, I don't see how it directly plays into the San Ramon Village specific plan. 330 does, but I don't see how RHNA does.
Phil, then Sabina.
Thanks, Bill. I think it's important. So the thing that props up my computer regularly is is my Webster's unabridged dictionary here, since one rarely has to look at that unless you're doing crosswords. And the word, so first of all, Martin, you don't define a word by using the word. Father Bellish, my junior English teacher, is turning over his grave as we speak, but the cooperating or contributing to the same matter. That is one of the definitions of the word concurrent. That's what they mean. It's contributing to the same matter. It's contributing to an overall level of housing. That's my take on what they mean. And I agree with what Martin said as far as you can't, what was it, hit a bullet with another bullet or something like that. That's not really the intention here. This is government. Things don't turn on a dime generally. I think that's their intention.
Uh-oh.
You appear to have frozen up there, Phil. I'm going to go with Sabina and let you finish when you get back. Sabina.
Yeah, my quick question was probably to Debbie, so the update we got is since 2006.
So comment. Thanks.
There. Did you want to finish, Phil? Because you froze.
Oh, I'm done. Thanks.
Okay.
Over, Phil. We lost the last 20 minutes.
I'm not sure how much you heard actually. So,
So you were right at the bullet
was gone.
What's that?
Last
Government
20
does
seconds
not
we
turn
missed.
on. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Sabina.
My question was around the addendum and why it is okay to have an addendum and not a full EIR if it has changed, the plan has changed from 2006 to now.
I'm happy to address that. So what is essentially happening with the update is the amount of development is being reduced over the prior plan. And so, in terms of traffic impacts or air quality emissions, the actual amount of future development is less, and therefore the impacts would be less. And so under CEQA, a new EIR would be required if there were new or substantially more severe impacts than previously analyzed. But since the amount of development is being reduced, that's not the case. And so the addendum goes through a process of analyzing each of the categories required under CEQA to demonstrate that there aren't any new or more substantially severe impacts, and comes to the conclusion that there are none, and therefore that an addendum is appropriate.
Thank you very much.
With the permission of the rest of the council, I'd like to open again the public comment. So Christina, I think we have both written and also I think go with the written first, and then we can go to see who would like to raise their hand. Would that be okay with you?
Fine with me.
Good. So
we've received 2 written comments, and for those in the audience I would like to speak on this item, please use the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or *9 on your telephone. All right. So the first public comment is received from Andrew Nelson. I'm an imaginative young adult. I like to think we are not bound by our past and that we can think big about our future. As someone who understands what makes towns and cities work, I want to emphasize the need to create a space where small businesses can afford rent in a retail destination built for people, not cars. If you build a destination where people can enjoy walking around, people will come. I'm extremely excited by the prospect of reinvigorating the city by replacing surface parking blight with a growing and appropriately sized commercial destination for a city as wealthy and vibrant as San Ramon. For an example of a place that works, there is Haji Lane in Singapore, a narrow pedestrian lane covered with murals and loads of outdoor dining. It is a space where small businesses can afford to operate. It's low area, high density footprint, and it drives a significant economy and cultural identity. It drives foot traffic, it gets people outside, and yes, it's outside, not inside. Most importantly, by plotting out space for multiple small buildings, you provide dozens of opportunities for a diversified investment. There are a lot of young people here with ideas for shops and businesses. If you make space that 25 to 30-year-olds can afford, renting around a couple dozen shops $1,000 to $3,000 per month, you'll see a phenomenal boom to this slagging economy. You might also want to think about emulating how food markets operate, such as our local farmers markets or even the San Francisco Ferry Building. Think about precedent for what commercial forms have been host to, the most sustainable neighborhoods and economies. If zoning must change to allow this, then that's okay. Santa Rosa must work to serve its citizens after all. Most importantly, this vision cannot work if there is a strong focus on cars. You can encourage bus or taxi ridership to this destination by reducing parking space, and it becomes a lot cheaper for everyone. Also, you can make a space that will not actively contribute to climate change and further depress my generation's future. Thank you for listening to my full comment. I am excited to see what comes to the Crow Canyon specific plan. And the next comment is from Jim Blickenstaff. Jim Blickenstaff asked the City Council to reject staff's recommendation to approve the CCSP update as written because it's impersonally uses an addendum to a 2006 EIR. A supplemental EIR is necessary where, as here, science has fundamentally shifted since 2006 in several key areas, including in the fields of climate change, mitigation strategies, and where, as here, the global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and resulting recession severely decrease the feasibility of the city's ability to carry out several critical components of the CCSP update. This city should prepare a subsequent or supplemental EIR that fully evaluates the environmental impacts of the project based on substantial changes in circumstances and the revelation of new information of significant importance. Mr. Blickenstaff continues his call on the City Council to slow its effort to approve the CCSP update to allow time for citizens to participate and make public comment during an in-person meeting of the Planning Commission and City Council. Executive Order N-29-20 permits local governments to conduct business virtually, but local governments should refrain from approving major policy changes when the public cannot fully exercise their rights to address city officials in person. Virtual meetings simply cannot replicate the energy and momentum of a live debate. Thank you. And then we have one member of the audience that would like to speak on this topic. Brian Winter.
Good evening, Mayor Clarkson, members of the City Council. I assume that you can hear me. Brian Winter. Okay, thank you. I'm Brian Winter from Miller Star Regalia on behalf of Windflower Fields, LLC, and Dr. Hassan Sharifi. I'd like to make my remarks brief. My intention was to focus only on the preliminary application for the housing development project that we filed on August 18th of this year. And we received a letter today from staff that we interpret as confirming the reality and effectiveness of the preliminary application we filed, and that we're essentially moving on to the next stage in the SB 330 process involving a preliminary application, which would be the preparation and filing of a formal application along the lines that has traditionally been the case in California. So if we have that wrong, we would greatly appreciate hearing it, but otherwise I'm assuming that that interpretation is correct and we're beyond questions about the preliminary application. Now so I appreciate the letter, appreciate that confirmation from staff. This is a great project. We think it's an important project and it's an appropriate use of the site in the city that needs housing. The intention is not, again, to focus on the city's CCSP process, and we've had good discussions with staff about a few of the substantive issues in this project regarding its proposed density and affordability levels that we do believe still warrants a study session with the City Council, and that there would be a benefit to the city and to this process by virtue of having such a closed session. I did not intend to say anything tonight, given the receipt of that letter today, about SB 330 and the anti-down zoning provisions in Government Code Section 66-300. But given the nature of the discussion tonight, I will just briefly comment that the words in the statute absolute, as a drafter of SB 330, I think I know a few things about it and what the intention was and the conversations that were occurring in connection with its drafting and adoption, and the words concurrently, or the word concurrently or concurrently changed, was very deliberate. It's along the lines of the Housing Accountability Act, which has been strengthened repeatedly over the years to such an extent that if you look at, as I have, I've looked at more than 10,000 pages of the legislative history. It reflects that even the League of California Cities has acknowledged that the findings that HIA articulates would be impossible to make, and the legislature went ahead and adopted the strengthened amendments anyway. That's the case here too. And I would analogize again, the words in the statute matter, and Government Code Section 65860, which deals with rezoning in the context of general plans and specific plans, specifically articulates that when zoning becomes inconsistent with the general plan or specific plan because the plan's been amended, the zoning must be amended within a reasonable time so that it is consistent with the plan. No such language appears in SB 330, and it doesn't contemplate a process where you have two disparate projects and density would be buried from one in another. But anyway, we're focused on this project at the 2701 Hooper Drive site, and we very much look forward to working with the city and accomplishing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
That was the only request to speak in the audience.
Then we will continue the public hearing to the October 27th, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion going forward?
No,
Or, and we'll use that motion as a basis to start up our discussion.
I move that we continue it to, what'd you say, October 27th?
27th, yes, Dave.
I'll second the motion.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. I don't see any hands up. It will be coming back to us one more time on the 27th.
Mr. Mayor, has there been a motion to waive the reading and read by title only? And can we make that a part of the motion?
Dave, why don't you formalize that for us?
You got to find a way to get me a printer.
Dave, one of the limitations we have, Martin, is not all of us have ready access because of the lack of a printed page. Is there somebody there who could read that for a motion?
Okay, I move we continue the public hearing and we waive the reading and we receive public testimony. Let's see where we've done that. Close the public testimony and continue the public hearing to October 27, 2020.
Phil, would you like to continue to second that?
Are you okay with that, Martin?
Yeah, as a clarification, are we closing the public testimony at this point? And then
Amended without closing the public testimony, I
No,
presume.
it's said to continue the public comment.
Yeah.
The next meeting.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
As amended, I second.
The recommendation says to close the public testimony.
Oh, he's saying not to.
Well, no, you may close the public testimony but if you are intending to accept public testimony at the next hearing, which I'm hearing that you are, then I would recommend leaving that open and just.
I would too.
Yeah.
I would too. I want to give the public every chance to comment on this until it is finally approved.
You okay with the amendment, Scott?
Absolutely. I just hope that staff would make the recommendation more clear in the future.
As amended, I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Okay, discussion. Dave, you got your hand up still.
Yeah, I definitely think we should leave it open, especially since Thursday is an extremely important date for the discussion about the RHNA numbers at APAC. But I mean, my problem isn't with the concurrence, it's with, and I don't have a copy of it because we're remodeling here at City Hall. But I mean, I'm reading this different than what I'm hearing. And I really hope we're sure about what we're doing. I don't want to be the next test for somebody's drive to be beyond Senate. And this this particular legislation has a lot of support. So I hope we're sure what we're doing. That's just with those two, Cortese and with the, what does he call it now, Windflower, whether or not it's worth it. And I want to be sure that we are including everything in the, what do we call it now, San Ramon Planning Commission, Planning Area Specific Plan, whatever the mayor's calling that thing versus Crow Canyon Specific Plan. Are we doing the same footprint where we are changing a residential, even though some of us voted, or some of you voted for overlay exclusion? I'm not sure the dates aren't concurrent that it's part of what SB 330 is trying to do. So we got to be sure about this at the next meeting. And if somebody disagrees, I'm glad you left public open.
Dave, it sounds as if we like to have, if not this evening, by the next meeting, have a concrete answer to your questions.
So I don't think there might, what may be going on here is some concurrence. There's an adoption of a specific plan and an effort by somebody to do something concurrently, and they both may play out. That's a possibility here. I believe that's essentially what Brian Winter was saying, and maybe that's the way it plays out. I don't know, but I have a feeling that who knows, that time will tell on some of this, but nonetheless, all the more reason to hear what the public has to say in 2 weeks.
Scott, I'm sorry, go ahead, Cindy.
Sure. I just wanted to perhaps provide just some additional background on RHNA and SB 330. If I could just try to respond to some of Councilmember Hudson's questions. We have a current RHNA that the city is allocated of 1,400 or so units. And we're currently operating under that RHNA through the next 2-3 years. Under the current RHNA cycle, the number of units that we have in the Crow Canyon area and what we are planning to adopt with this new plan meets our current RHNA allocation. And it essentially still meets the no net loss requirement that is in state law. So as far as the adoption of this Crow Canyon plan, even with a reduction of the residential capacity that we're recommending from 735 to 634, we still have capacity in our RHNA to meet the requirements of the no net loss provision as well as SB 330. We do have 2 current applications that have been filed for preliminary housing development. We have accepted those as applications as being submitted for the requirements of SB 330. The next steps for those projects require that a formal development application be submitted. But because of the timing of when those applications were submitted to the city, those applications can continue to process under the requirements of the 2006 Crow Canyon specific plan. So the preliminary application allows for those projects to continue to move forward based on what the current zoning of those parcels are under the 2006 plan. So nothing prevents them from continuing to move forward with an application to develop residential on those 2 sites. As far as the future RHNA and the allocation that we will be getting in by the end of this year and that we'll have to address with our housing element update, we will have to reevaluate, just like we do every 8 years, how many sites are available and how many units each of those sites will be able to accommodate, so that we can ensure that we have enough locations within the city to meet our allocation. So once we get that final number, whether it's 4,700 plus or minus, we will then look at the city comprehensively and evaluate based on the sites that we already have, and then future sites that we may need to include to meet that allocation. We'll have to look at that comprehensively through our next housing element cycle, which we expect will take a good 2 years.
Great. Dave, you had your hand up. You want to complete your thought on this before I move to the next?
Yeah, and it's nothing that has to be answered tonight, but what really has, I mean, everybody must think, why does this guy keep bringing it up? And the answer is the very low. Very low is the number of houses homes we have to perform or we have to produce is ridiculous at 500. And the initial number I heard out of 4,000 is 1,700. So yeah, I get a little nervous about this, and I'll probably be asking about it after Thursday. That's why I said it's an important date. We lose this argument, I don't even want to think about it. I'll leave it at that.
Scott and then Sabina.
I want to thank Cindy. She answered my questions so that the SB 330 process will continue on. This San Ramon Village specific plan will continue on. And since they made their applications before our final approval, October 27th, they will have their applications considered based on SB 330. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we should press forward and complete our San Ramon Village specific plan so that future applications would then be seen in the light of the new specific plan.
Great. Sabina.
If we make substantial changes to it now, we won't have the 3 planning commission hearings and approval, followed by the 3 council meetings and approval. That creates its own problem.
Sabina.
So one thing, Cindy, you brought up, so the applications are submitted, but the planning will depend on what's approved as part of this plan, right? So that's how we're separating this?
No, so let me make sure I clear that up. Specifically, under SB 330, when an applicant files what we call a preliminary housing development application, at the time that they submit all 17 required items along with the fee, if those items have been submitted to the city, at that point in time, SB 330 requires that a city process that application based on the rules that are in place and adopted on the date that their preliminary housing application is filed. And so because those 2 applications have been filed before the adoption of this Crow Canyon plan that we're considering, they have the ability to process a housing project on that site under the 2006 development standards. They do also have the ability to process under the new plan if they decided to submit another application for another development proposal on their property and eliminate the original application they've made. So they have the ability to continuously file housing applications at various points in time, but on the date that they filed that preliminary application and whatever rules are in place at that time, those are the rules that we would be reviewing the project against.
So what if we got a total of these applications to be 734 and we are trending to, I think 735 and we're trending to 634, then would we have to stay with the 735? Or that's what I'm trying to understand. What is
so the 735 is the unit count that we anticipate based on the density that we've identified for all of the sites. For the 634, because we've reduced the overall number of residential sites, that's why the reduction in the overall residential capacity. Even if an applicant were to file additional applications beyond the sites that we originally envisioned for residential, they can continue to process those applications under SB 330. And so there is a potential that with these additional preliminary applications we receive, they could potentially exceed what we expected with the 634 units, and it could potentially go up beyond that number. But because SB 330 allows for those applications to be filed, there's not much a city can do in terms of allowing for those units to move forward with the development application.
Cindy, I have a question. When the applications are submitted, you said, have they been deemed complete or submitted? So and I'm not sure what the technical term deemed complete is, but do they have to be submitted and deemed complete by the city to qualify for those dates?
So that's a very good question. And SB 330 is worded very specifically. I don't have the actual text in front of me, but and Martin can kind of correct me if I get this wrong. But under SB 330, the way that the language is written is that when an applicant submits a preliminary housing development application, along with the 17 items that are listed in the Senate bill and the payment of the fee, that is the time, the date in which the development standards would then freeze. And rather than our traditional, what we know as a complete application,
Right.
It's separate in that SB 330 is specific in identifying that it's a project submittal rather than allowing the city to deem an application complete.
I understand the response. Thank you. Other questions? Not seeing any questions, we'll take a vote to continue this to the 27th. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Hudson.
Aye.
Councilmember Alone.
Aye.
Councilmember Perkins.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Zafar.
Aye.
And Mayor Clarkson.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
Cindy, thank you for all your work on this. Good answers. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Item 12, new business, we have none. Item 13, city manager comments.
We can all lean back and
Good evening, Council and Mayor. There's been a lot of questions regarding power safety or public safety power shutoffs. It doesn't appear as though San Ramon will be affected, but we will keep you informed if that should change at this point. Our playgrounds are now open and we're disinfecting them 3 to 5 times per week, and we're inconsistent with the county health order. You'll see some signage posted regarding social distancing and mask wearing, but those playgrounds are now open. As you know, voting is pretty much in full swing. We have 2 outdoor locations. We have one at a San Ramon Community Center outdoor ballot box, and we also have an outdoor ballot box at Doherty Valley Community Center. We have 3 indoor locations, one at City Hall, one at the Permit Center, and one at the Senior Center. So we've covered all areas of the city to provide for easy access to that. We have some pretty exciting Halloween programs that our Parks and Community Services folks have worked very hard on. We have a Halloween home decorating contest. We have a virtual Halloween costume contest for both adults, kids, and even pets. And then we have
excuse me,
pets. We have a scarecrow scavenger hunt in Central Park being planned for the 26th that some of our foundations and the city departments are participating in and putting scarecrows throughout Central Park. And you can get information on all these if you go to our website and check it out. So those of you that are looking to put some fun into Halloween, even in the midst of a pandemic. Hopefully we got a lot of cool stuff that our community can enjoy. I mentioned this last week, and I'm going to leave it probably to Vice Mayor Zafar to probably comment on even further, but we did receive a 2020 Beacon Award, platinum level spotlight award for 63% energy savings. Vice Mayor Zafar was at the meeting to receive that award, so I'm going to leave it for her to discuss. And then finally, the Contra Costa County Health Services is offering free flu shots when you go get a COVID-19 test at the San Ramon Drive-Through Center. So if you want to get a flu shot and get a COVID-19 test at the same time, we'd encourage you to go to that. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Joe. Madam Clerk.
Item 14, public comment.
This is a second opportunity we have at our meeting for anybody to address the council and the public on any issue that's not on our agenda. Has anybody raised their hand?
For those in the audience that would like to speak, please use the raise your hand button or *9 on your telephone.
I'd like to give it a few seconds here. Any hands raised?
No, we have no hands raised.
Okay, I will close the public comment then.
Item 15, city council members and mayor's comments.
I'll go right to you, Sabina. Since Joe had a little segue for you, I thought I'd tee you right up.
So I attended the virtual League of California Cities conference last week, which was quite interesting. It was actually good to meet a number of folks virtually, and we got into breakout rooms and stuff and be able to connect with folks one-on-one. So it's like all these virtual conferences, it's a little weird, but I think the breakout rooms helped a little bit, kind of create more of an intimate, and then you're like out of that room in 5 minutes or something like that. And then of course, it was an honor to receive what were they called? The Beacon Awards. We were the platinum receivers. I remember last year, I was very jealous and when we weren't up there receiving. So thanks for city for making it happen. And really it was because of an energy saving and the lights that we've changed throughout, and that we got the platinum award. And so it was kind of a pre-show video presentation. There were 40 cities that received the awards, and we were one of them, and really speaks to the city's paying attention to what we're doing for climate action, if you will, and continuing to build that into our city services. So thank you, Joe. Obviously, it's you and your staff that have really put that in place. I was just, the face and the cheering face to receive that. So I appreciate everything that, the Public Works has done really to thoughtfully change out these lights and make them more energy efficient. And that's all I had. I've also had a few, it's been interesting. I think our AP Gov teachers in middle school and high school and all the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, everybody wants to know about public service right now and the election and serving in office. So I think I probably had more Zoom meetings with Boy Scouts and girls and 8th graders and high schoolers. So it's been interesting trying to help them understand how our city government works and how the process works. So that's kind of my update.
Great. Dave.
Yeah, everything. Actually, I was going to say, Sabina, have you seen the faces on this council? They were probably happy to see you. I think everything that's gone on in since the last meeting kind of pales to what the mayor and I are going to be speaking at Thursday. This meeting with ABAG is about as important as anyone we've had in several years. There's a problem. If 2/3 of the jobs between now and 2050 are going to be in 3 counties and they're not getting 2/3 of the housing, we've got to make it clear that you are going to produce 200. Let's put it into numbers, 442,000 homes in those 3 counties should be doing at least 295,000 of them. That's the way we'll get our number down, hopefully, if it comes. The one thing I was hoping, Mayor, that they would give to you when you speak is one of the real concerns we should have with teleconferencing. If you don't put housing, let's pick on Santa Clara. in Santa Clara who's supposed to get 44% of the jobs. You get more jobs, you don't get housing. Demand is up, supply isn't. What happens to price? And I know you went through it because I did. In the 90s, when they changed the law and people sold their homes in Santa Clara and came here, and it was very difficult to compete with people that were buying the same home for $500,000 less and pocketing the money. So we've got our work cut out for it, because a lot of people down there think teleconferencing is the answer, but it isn't the answer if they come over here and pocket 500 grand to stuff into the stock market or do whatever. And this isn't the first time it's happened. So we got to make them believe that their responsibility is to build, not to find a way out. They still have to build and find the way out. How do you see it?
Thank you, Dave. Scott, and then Phil. Scott, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Leave him there.
There you go. Come on, Dave.
You know, it says to hit the space bar, but that doesn't always work, apparently. I have nothing to report today. Thank you.
Okay. Phil.
Two things. One, I believe a bunch of that Platinum Beacon stuff goes all the way back to when Greg Rogers did the leaseback thing with Bank of America, I think in 2013 or something like that. I'm reminded that the most important poll number for me is the better half in this house, and wasn't too pleased about the tone of the lights at that point in time. So no good deed goes unpunished, right? But I'm happy to report that the acronym here, Alameda County Transit Commission allocated the $400 million of Measure BB money a week or two ago to the Valley Link project that had originally been with BART. That BART somehow thought that they should be able to hang on to it, and through efforts of lots of folks, led of course by Scott Haggerty, it went in the right direction. So I'm happy about that, and also happy to see that there's early voting happening. Thanks for putting more bins out and all that to the, I guess, city clerk. Christina, you were involved with that. So thanks for that. And keep wearing masks, even not on Halloween. So that's it.
By the way, I signed a letter on behalf of the Tri-Valley Transportation Council to the Alameda County Transportation Authority, recommending that 400,000 or 400 million. I don't know how much that influenced.
I heard that was the tipping point, Scott. That was what I heard.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing that.
Absolutely.
So is it, for before the mayor goes, is it fully funded now, or how much more is no?
Oh no. Oh no. But the reality is there's a lot more funding for this project. For a project of this magnitude, there's more funding. This has more funding than almost any other project they've seen at this point in time. So these things take years to get put together, and part of it also is people start getting more grandiose ideas, and they start going from what's the big leap from 2.2 to 2.6 billion? What's the big deal? They don't really, they get a little ahead of themselves on particular things. So it's got a long way to go, but it makes sense, and I hope it all works out.
Yeah, we were advocating for it in January, and I heard we didn't really get those funds from the feds. So,
well, there's a whole bunch of different pots of money, and the things could change.
Yeah, so the DOT didn't give those, I guess, funds. So that's why I'm like, we sat in there, we talked about it, and guess those that never came through.
DOT doesn't have a lot of money, really.
Right.
Two quick items. One is the Mayor's Breakfast, which we do now every 2 weeks. We're going to have it 3 weeks this time. There wasn't anything really compelling going on this week to report out, and we just don't want to have them just to have them. We want to have good information. We used to do them originally once a month. So next Friday, we'll have Dr. Joseph on in the county and get an update, complete update on what's going on with COVID and how we as a city and the community are adapting to this and what the newest standards will be then. And the second is to put into context comments that Dave was making too about this meeting with ABAG. And ABAG is a regional group that, along with state mandates and other kinds of regional stuff, they create for cities. This is some context for residents. They create these directives to us on how many homes they want us to zone within our cities for different levels of housing, from very low to affordable and moderate. And we are directed by a law within certain specific, certain time periods to create zoning within our cities for these numbers. And the concern we have, and Dave has expressed this, is that it's supposed to be a nexus between the jobs you have and trying to find ways to have housing get closer to jobs. We're trying to get people off the freeways. There's a number of metrics in their minds to do this, but they're changing direction a little bit. And Dave might concur with this, is that they are now actually starting to scatter housing in ways that's not really productive to putting it where the jobs are. And the biggest obstacle, or the biggest thing that jumps off the page, is Santa Clara County. It tends to be still a huge job center. You look at the top 10 companies that are in Santa Clara County, and they range from over 100,000 employees to about 70 or 80,000 on the number 10. And of course, our biggest is 4,000. We have two with around 4,000. So they have these huge job centers, and yet they are completely underhoused at this stage. And the preliminary stuff from these numbers, called RHNA, which is an acronym for some fancy organization that tells us how many numbers we have to create, is they're still looking at undercounting the number of homes that Santa Clara should build and pushing it out into the suburbs. And I know that a variety of organizations, and Phil might comment on organizations like the Greenbelt Alliance and others, they're telling clearly that if we build housing, we should do it where there are transportation centers, where there is mass transit, where there are vibrant bus lines so people can get around, because already our freeways, even now, are difficult to get around. And we're not having that kind of direction with these newest numbers. And we're very concerned about this. Staff has asked me, along with some others, to address the board to try to encourage them to, again, focus the housing where there are jobs. And we don't have a lot of choices. It's very important that these numbers could eventually become very real in San Ramon, and that even though we don't build these, cities don't build housing, developers do, we still have to plan for it. And that's the obstacle that we're trying to avoid to the extent we can, how much impact it will have on San Ramon. Dave, I'm going to look to you to see, did I describe that accurately?
Pretty good. The RHNA it comes from housing community development. It just means your regional housing needs allocation. But you really nailed something with the employers, and I want to bring it home if I may. The top 10 employers in Santa Clara employ over 1 million people.
It's amazing. Yes, it's exactly right.
That's the top 10. That's not Salesforce in San Francisco, who just, I mean, the problem is the entire 3 counties.
So, Madam Clerk, next item.
Item 16, adjournment.
Is there a motion?
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Wait, is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, wait a minute. Let's talk about this.
I hear a motion. All those in favor signify by clicking off.
Yeah.